Part 1: The Foundation of Love. They say you marry the person, not their family. I used to believe that. I clung to the fantasy that love could exist in a vacuum, just two people against the world. That illusion crumbled the moment I met Lydia, my wife's mother. But I should start at the beginning, before the shadows crept in. I met Alina at a conference in Prague. She was delivering a paper on childhood trauma and resilience, standing tall in front of a room full of hardened academics. Her voice trembled at first but steadied with every sentence, like she was claiming space had never been allowed before. I was captivated not just by her words, but by the pain she translated into power. Her eyes, hazel, intense, and quick to soften, held the kind of empathy that could undo you. We talked afterward, first about our work, then about everything else. She was brilliant, understated, and real. I told her things I hadn't even told my closest friends. Within months, we were inseparable. Within a year, we moved in together in a cozy apartment in Lucerne with creaky floors and a view of the lake. Our love was quiet but full. We had rituals: Friday night takeout, jazz on Sundays, handwritten notes slipped into each other's bags. She lit a candle each evening before bed, whispering a wish into the flame. It's silly, she'd say, but I never thought it was. She had a soft way of being in the world, but I noticed early on that certain things made her retreat: an unexpected knock, a raised voice, even a small disagreement. She'd apologize too quickly, even when it was me who had overstepped. When I asked about her childhood, she would pause and say, "It was structured. My mom's very organized." It wasn't until after we got engaged that I understood what organized meant. Lydia was statuesque, with sharp cheekbones and sharper eyes. A retired school principal, she radiated authority and precision. When she smiled, it never reached her eyes. She came to dinner the first time wearing all black and brought us a bouquet of white lilies. "For peace," she said. Alina stiffened. We barely exchanged words that night. Lydia spoke to Alina as though I wasn't there, correcting her posture mid-sentence, commenting on her salt intake, her hair, her tone. It wasn't blatant, more like death by 1,000 paper cuts. I asked Alina about it later. She sighed. She means well. It's just how she is. I let it go. The wedding was small, just 20 guests. Lydia offered to cover the flowers, then changed them last minute to what she called a more appropriate palette. Alina cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. I held her and told her none of it mattered. What mattered was us. That night, during her toast, Lydia said, "Alina has always been strong. She's survived more than most. I hope marriage doesn't make her forget who she had to be." The room went silent. Alina smiled weakly. I clenched my jaw. Still, I believed it would get better after we married. That she'd settle into her own life. That she'd give us space. I was wrong. 3 months later, Alina received a call. Lydia's building was being renovated for plumbing work. She needed a place to stay for a couple of weeks. "She doesn't have anyone else," Alina said. "It's just temporary." I didn't want her there. But the look in Alina's eyes, part fear, part guilt, made me bite my tongue. 2 weeks. That's what I told myself. 2 weeks became the beginning of everything unraveling. Part 2: Rising Tension and Betrayal. Lydia arrived with 2 heavy suitcases, a travel kettle, and a suitcase full of kitchen spices she insisted were the only real way to cook. She didn't ask where to put her things, she declared which room she'd take. Within the first hour, she had rearranged the living room cushions, unplugged the diffuser Alina always kept on, and commented that our hallway smelled like unresolved choices. I didn't even know what that meant, but Alina flinched like it had hit a nerve. I tried to stay out of her way, but the house felt smaller now. Lydia woke up at 5 a.m. and played classical music on speaker while making traditional breakfast. She left notes on the fridge correcting our grocery list. When I came home from work, she'd be in the middle of telling Alina how the paint color in the bedroom washed out her skin. "She's only here for a little while," Alina kept saying. But her eyes said otherwise. She hadn't slept properly since her mother arrived. The first crack came when I suggested a weekend trip, just the two of us. Alina hesitated. We can't just leave her here. What if she takes it the wrong way? I replied, Alina, she's a grown woman. This is our home. She looked at me for a long moment and said, You don't know what she's capable of. That night, I stayed up late reading. When I walked into the kitchen at 2 a.m. to get some water, I heard whispering. Lydia was on the balcony, speaking on the phone in hushed tones. Yes. No, not yet. She still thinks he's trustworthy. I didn't say anything. Just stood there in the dark. Watching. The next morning, Lydia was her usual self, iron-pressed blouse, sharp eyes, and a comment about how my tie didn't match my low emotional intelligence. I laughed it off, but a cold worry began sinking deeper. A week later, it escalated. Alina came home early from work, visibly shaken. She confronted me in the hallway, holding a photo. It was a printed picture of me at lunch with a woman, my colleague, Marta, from our office. The angle was clearly taken from a distance, like someone had followed me. I remembered the lunch. It was work-related. Marta had just gone through a breakup, and would talked about her transferring departments. Alina's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me? Because it was nothing, I said. You know Marta. You've met her. She said you've been distant. That you've been lying. Who said that? Alina hesitated. My mother. I felt something in me snap, not rage, but a cold awareness that this wasn't going to stop. Lydia wasn't just visiting. She was planting seeds, calculating, waiting. That night, I checked our Wi-Fi router logs. Someone had accessed our network under a device name I didn't recognize. I traced it back to a location tracking app. Lydia had installed it on Alina's phone. Probably when Alina wasn't looking. I showed her. Her hands shook as she held the screen. She told me she was just checking my calendar. She said it was for my safety. She's manipulating you, I said gently. This isn't love, Alina. She nodded slowly, almost mechanically, and whispered, This is how it's always been. She calls it protection. I call it fear. In the days that followed, Alina began pulling away. Not from me, but from the invisible chains her mother had wrapped around her for years. I watched her reclaim small pieces of herself, turning her phone off at night, refusing to explain every move, challenging Lydia when she made one of her quiet insults. Lydia noticed. She doubled down. One evening, I overheard her telling Alina, You're changing. And not for the better. He's turning you into someone I don't recognize. Alina responded with something you'll never forget, That's the point, Mom. The turning point came during a dinner with our friends. Lydia had insisted on cooking. When she heard Alina mention our plans to possibly move abroad for a fellowship I'd been offered, she slammed her fork down mid-meal and said, Over my dead body will you abandon your roots for his ambitions? The room fell silent. Alina stood up slowly, placed her napkin on the table, and said, Then maybe it's time I stop living for your approval. That night, I found Alina on the balcony again, wrapped in a blanket. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. I used to think love meant obedience, she said. That if I didn't bend, I'd break. But maybe I needed to break to build something real. I wrapped my arms around her, kissed her temple, and whispered, I'm here. All the way. And for the first time in weeks, she leaned into me without looking over her shoulder. Part 3, Resolution and Redemption. Lydia must have sensed the shift, something in the air between us no longer bent to her control. The following week was a strange calm, like the silence before a storm. She was quieter, more careful with her words. But beneath the surface, she was watching, waiting. She knew her grip was slipping. We didn't need to wait for the storm. We invited it. On a Saturday morning, Alina asked her mother to meet us in the living room. She brewed tea, the way her mother liked it, no sugar, strong, bitter. A final act of courtesy. Then she sat across from her and folded her hands like she was bracing herself in the eye of a hurricane. I need to talk, Alina began, her voice trembling at first. And I need you to listen. Lydia raised an eyebrow but said nothing. For most of my life, Alina continued, I'd been afraid of you. I told myself it was respect, but it wasn't. It was fear of your disappointment, of your anger, of your silence. You shaped me to be who you wanted me to be. But I'm not that girl anymore. Lydia pursed her lips. I raised you to be strong. No, Alina said, her voice growing firmer, you raised me to survive you. There's a difference. Lydia scoffed. This is his doing. He's filled your head with nonsense. Stop, I said, keeping my voice calm. This has nothing to do with me. Alina turned toward her mother again. You've crossed every boundary I tried to set. You installed spyware on my phone. You followed my husband. You tried to sabotage my marriage because you couldn't control it. You're ungrateful, Lydia hissed, her composure finally slipping. Everything I did was for you. No, Alina said quietly. Everything you did was for control. But I'm done being controlled. Lydia stood, eyes burning, but Alina didn't flinch. I need you to leave. You're choosing him over me? Lydia demanded. No, Alina said. I'm choosing myself. Silence. A long, agonizing silence. Then Lydia picked up her tea, took a long sip, and walked toward the guest room. She packed in a fury, slamming drawers and muttering to herself. When she passed us with her suitcase in hand, she paused just before the door. You'll regret this. No, Alina said gently. But I might grieve it. That's different. Lydia left without another word. The apartment was quiet for a long time after that. No more footsteps at dawn. No more whispered manipulation behind doors. Just stillness and grief. Not just for the loss of a mother figure, but for the childhood Alina had never truly escaped until now. The days that followed were tender and raw. Alina cried, often. She cried for the girl who never got to feel safe. For the teenager who learned to shrink herself to survive. For the woman who was only now learning to draw her own lines. We went to therapy. We walked every evening without our phones. We read books aloud to each other. One night, I found Alina lighting her usual candle, but this time, she didn't whisper a wish. What did you wish for? I asked gently. Nothing, she smiled. I don't need to wish anymore. I'm living it. She had taken back her voice and with it, her power. 6 months later, we moved to Amsterdam for my fellowship. Alina began writing a book, part memoir, part therapeutic guide for daughters of controlling parents. She titled it The Silence That Shaped Me. It was raw, unfiltered, and courageous. Just like her. Lydia sent a few emails in the months after her departure. Apologies wrapped in excuses. Offers to visit. Then guilt-laced silence. Alina responded only once, a short message. I love you, but I won't abandon myself to keep you comfortable anymore. When you're ready to meet me as I am, not as you want me to be, I'll be here. And that was that. We built a life from truth, not perfection, not performance, just honesty. We still had arguments. We still had days where the past tried to creep back in. But now we met those moments as a team, not two people surviving side by side. One evening, on our balcony overlooking the canals, I asked her if she ever missed her mother. Alina looked out into the fading light and said, I miss the idea of her. The mother I kept hoping she'd become. But I don't miss who she actually was. And I think that's okay. Then she turned to me, her eyes steady and warm. You know what the scariest part was? What? Realizing I'd rather lose her than lose myself again. I kissed her hand and said, you'll never have to choose between love and freedom again. Because the truth is, real love doesn't require us to shrink. It asks us to grow, even if that growth comes with loss. And that's what we chose each other, again and again, with open eyes and open hearts. Thank you for taking this journey with us. If you have similar stories or experiences, please share them in the comments below. Your thoughts mean a lot.